All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Pure Live on this wonderful Juneteenth. Let's see, make sure I'm straight here. Let's see. Okay. We have some wonderful people with us today. As you saw before in the topics of the flyers that I've been sending out, I have as our featured guest Norman J. Liverpool, the fourth, founder of Over the Top Living. And we also have doctors Aaron and Margaret Jamal. And they are founders of I Do Me Too, which I will have them on at another time as well. But today we are going to talk about some um, controversial stuff and introduce Norman Liverpool's story. I'm going to bring everybody in now. We've got Norman and Doctors Aaron and Margaret Jamal. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello, Miss Jamal Rogers.
Happy Juneteenth.
Happy Juneteenth. Happy Juneteenth.
Yeah.
So it has come to my attention that everybody does not know what Juneteenth is about. So let me give you a brief. I was going to play a little video, but I was having technical difficulties. So let me make it plain for you. The Emancipation Proclamation that was written and signed by the president, President Lincoln, was supposed to have freed the slaves. But it did not reach to Texas, this news. So there were still hundreds of slaves that were still in entrapment and everything enslaved in Texas. So what happened was the news came to Texas 2 years later. 2 years later, people, everybody else is like, hey, we're free. We're not slaves anymore. And they are still breaking back. So 1865, June 19th, is when they found out, oh, we're all free. So everybody knows now, that they were free slaves 2 years later. So
Free
I know
from
some people are like, I'm sorry.
From slavery.
Yes, from slavery. I don't know what I just said, but yes.
Slave.
They're free from being slaves. So Emancipation Proclamation 1863. Then 1865, June 19th, everyone knew. So that is why we celebrate June 19th, which was combined eventually as Juneteenth. We celebrate that day as the official day of everyone, all of our people being free from slavery. So there's my brief. All right, so that is what we celebrate today.
Yeah.
So let's dig in. So the reason I asked, and for you all that don't know, I have all family here. Norman J. Liverpool the fourth is my cousin, my younger cousin. I love him so much.
And I love you more.
Aaron and Margaret Jamal. Doctors Aaron and Margaret Jamal are actually my parents. Aren't I blessed? Look at these
Indeed.
wonderful people.
We're blessed.
We are.
Everybody. Hey, nephew.
I hey, bless. Okay. We're a singing family. You'll find all of them, even Norman, in case y'all didn't know. That's right. Chi-Town, Sarah in the chat said, Mercer family.
Yeah.
Recognized.
All right. Exactly.
So I asked Doctors Aaron and Margaret Jamal to join today because of the overall topics and the things that we will be addressing. First, I want to start with Norman and Over the Top Living. So
Yes.
For those of you guys that are part of my Pure group on Facebook, or if you can go into my website, which is asiajamal.net or asiajamal.com, then you would have seen my blog that I posted earlier today. And you see, he's the founder of Over the Top Living, and the title was How to Uplift Your Life.
Yeah.
And the reason that I wanted him to be a part of this is because I watched him start from scratch. I watched him go to, I guess you could say, a dark place and come into the light. I've watched him excel and just keep growing and growing and growing. And we have the happy, laughing, joking Norman that we have today. There's so many other people that have gone through things that are similar to him went the other way. You know, going through severe depression, or they're no longer even here because they couldn't take it anymore and they took their own lives. It's that deep. So I wanted to talk about Over the Top Living. What inspired you to start Over the Top Living? What is it about? Let's start there.
Well, first of all, Mrs. Aja Jamal Rogers, I want to thank you for the opportunity to share your platform with my, to share my story on your platform. So Over the Top Living was birthed. It was birthed from a place of, it came from a very negative place. So when I was growing up, I was always told that I was super feminine, I was over the top, I was this and that. So as I began to mature and walk into my purpose, unapologetically and unashamed, I realized that, yeah, I am over the top, and that's a blessing. And so Over the Top Living is my public speaking and motivational speaking platform, as well as a mentorship and coaching program specifically designed for the LGBTQ plus community. And the reason why I did that is because okay. And so I started because honestly, and you know this, like we come from the same family. We come from a very spiritual, a very Christ-based family. And I don't know that I always felt the love or the acceptance from my family. And so what happened was, when I moved to Las Vegas at 21, I spent many years on varying ends of a spectrum trying to find myself, because I was looking at what society and my family was saying versus what is innately Norman. And so I wanted to provide a platform for other LGBTQ plus community members to have a safe place where they could come, feel accepted, and get the coaching to connect the dots from A to Z.
Okay. That's pretty cool. And you're absolutely right. And, as I said, I have my parents, Doctors Aaron and Margaret Jamal, on with me. So they know all about the upbringing. We are a family of love. Mm-hmm. And I want to put that out there. And the message that we want to put out there, and I think we've learned more and more through the years how to display that love and make sure people understand that we're not judging and that we do not feel that we are better or higher than they are, but that we are all God's children, and all we want to do is spread that love and spread that gospel. And I love you, Norman.
I do. What people don't understand is me and you are closer than a lot of people realize. And there was a lot of things that me and you were privy to in my life that nobody else knows. And so I think that that's why this is so special, because there's a lot of my story that no one knows except you. And that's why I'm so happy to be here tonight.
Well, thank you. I so appreciate you being here. Doctors Aaron and Margaret Jamal, you guys have been involved in ministry for long alive. So you guys have run into all kinds of people, all kinds of backgrounds. How do you feel about hearing what Norman said, and how do you handle from all of the various ones and speaking to them.
What was the last part you said?
Well, I don't know which last part you're talking about, but I'll repeat. How do you handle the people with the various different backgrounds? How do you handle dealing with them, speaking to them, and how do you feel about what Norman said about his feeling like he was not accepted?
Can you start?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it saddens me that we didn't do a better job during our time with Norman to make him feel not only that he was accepted, but that he's loved. The reality of it is that we are called to love one another, not judge one another. And truly, if it is that and when I'm talking about we, I am talking about believers, because the instruction comes from the Lord that we ought to love one another. And so if we had done a better job at doing that, then maybe he would have felt more validated and appreciated and accepted, so that he wouldn't feel as he described. Having said that, there are a lot of people, unfortunately, that come to the church or come into the relationship with biases, and you know what that's about. You know, when it is that you come into biases, they're implicit biases. At times they don't even know aware of them, but those biases cause them to look at people through filters or lenses that are causing that person to look a certain way to them, regardless of what that person is or says. That's how they see them, because of the lens that they're looking at the person. And so God has given us the opportunity to see things differently than we did when we were growing up. Okay. And so as we've grown closer to God, we've also grown more loving of others and each other, because we understand that we're all God's children. He died that all would be able to live and have eternal life. And so I appreciate, that Norman has reached a point right now where he has found a safer place, that he can feel to express himself. But again, this isn't about me being in a position to judge. He doesn't have to prove himself to us. More than anything, I want Norman to know, as we want everyone to know, that he's loved. Not just because he's our nephew. He's loved because he's God's child as well. That's my point.
Yeah. And I would like to, being very transparent, at the time that Norman began to express, if you don't mind, the conflict of sexuality, you have to, I remember his fiance, right? And so I believe that all of our children are special in different ways. All of our family are very unique. So the uniqueness wasn't so much of a challenge. The thing is that you have to understand is that we were new Christians as well. Even in the ministry, we were new to the ministry. So we were still trying to figure this thing out. And we're still trying to figure this thing out. I still have questions, even though I accept my nephew as my nephew. I can't honestly say that I understand the whole movement or culture or whatever you want to call it. I still have questions, and I like to sit down and dialogue and be able to ask those questions. And I feel like I'm being judged. One of the things that I don't like is that if I don't understand homosexuality, for example, is being automatically labeled as homophobic. I think that's, it's, you know what I'm saying? You don't, to me, the acceptance needs to go both ways.
And you know what? I want to touch on that, because I definitely agree with you on that. And I think that as a family, we touched on this on our family call, where even as we're talking about the Black Lives Matter movement, and we're talking about people gaining understanding and getting that, I 100% agree with you. I definitely believe that it's a two-way street. I think that it's a dialogue, meaning there's an exchange of ideas and conversation amongst people going back and forth. And I welcome a conversation to that extent.
Great.
Good. Because like I said, there are some things, that we don't get. And there's some questions that we want to ask. Going back to the love thing, I do appreciate our children, because it was Gina and it was Asia who actually, for me, challenged me to say, I remember Asia like almost in tears saying, we need to be reaching out instead of judging people. Gina didn't do tearful. Gina was just going to be Gina. That's my cousin. I love my cousins. I love everybody, knowing that we all love as well. But at the same time, Asia challenged to say, not just love from a distance, but you need to actually reach out, go in, grab them, and let them know that they're not ostracized, they're not different, or not being dismissed or judged. Like one of the things that's happening in the Black Lives Matter, and then I'll, exchange that, is we want to find common ground, true. But just like what this show is about, we want people to have their own identity. So in other words, I'm not going to just accept you and say, because this is what you have that's like me, I want you to be you. It's like people that say they don't see color. I want to see color, but I want to love that other color. I want to see the uniqueness in different people. I want to see the uniqueness in Norman. I want to see the uniqueness in my husband and Asia and everybody else, and appreciate it and honor it and learn from it. And so that's what I believe. That the Christ in me is maturing me to that, so that I recognize that all of God's creation is good. He looked at it and said, I might not understand it, but that doesn't make it not good.
Very good. Very good.
Amen. I completely agree.
I love that. And I just want to say, Asia, it's really big. It's really big of your parents to be able to take that position. And I want to put this in perspective for your viewers and for my viewers that are watching, is that we have not, like, the first time that we have seen each other in the same room, I think was at your wedding or at Elijah's wedding. I can't remember which one came first. So I just want to make sure that there's a perspective.
First, so Elijah's wedding was last.
Okay, so I just want that to be a perspective that there was a period of time where I completely separated myself from everything that I knew, from everyone that I knew, in order to do that. And so for your parents, to my aunt and uncle, whom I love, I appreciate you being able to say that, and that warms my heart.
Wonderful.
Well, you guys. So one of the things that I put in the blog for today, again, that is at asiajamal.net or .com, whichever. I own them both. All right. When I put them in there, what I said in regards to how to uplift your life is one component that is important in uplifting your life is uplifting others. And if we all take the position of uplifting each other, then we're all able to climb. We're able to continue to move forward and move up. And one of the things that I kept hearing from Norman and other people is when we say Black Lives Matter, that all Black lives matter. So no matter what their background is or what kind of people they are or what they believe in or whatever is going on with them, they matter as well. And it's sad that we have to say that, but I want us to say it as often as possible so they realize really all lives matter. And so we talk about how difficult it is for us as a people, and I'm talking about African Americans especially, but there are other minorities that have certain challenges as well in regards to moving up in this country, having jobs that where you're not living from paycheck to paycheck, or that you can cover all of your bills, or you're not able to get certain positions because of your color, or people not hiring you at all because of your color, or people not accepting you into certain societies because of your color. These kind of things is what we're fighting against, and many other things. We want people to stop killing each other, of course. That's at the top of the list. And I say each other because it's not just the cops killing the Blacks. We are killing each other. All of that stop.
May I speak to that, please?
Sure.
I think it's crucial for us to acknowledge when we're addressing this this topic that we're talking about right now is really under the umbrella of inequality, because we have been viewed through that lens of inequality, um, less human, less than. That has caused us to handle this heavy cross, if you will, through the duration of the time it is that we've been here in this country. The challenges don't just come to every other minority the same way it has come to African Americans, because no one was systemically challenged to be dehumanized. So they would justify doing what they were doing to enslave us. And so, to the extent of that dehumanization, there was such a disparaging inequality that even those other minorities, though they're coming in with challenges of bigotry and things where it is that they're not quote unquote treated as Americans, even there they're still not struggling with the same dehumanizing factors as African Americans, which is why it is that this policing culture is so dismissive of American, I should say, African American lives. It's okay for them to shoot someone. It's okay for them to abuse you. It's okay to lock you up because your life really doesn't matter that much. That transcends into the culture of African Americans to the point that we have black on black crime, because again, it's been indoctrinated into us that our lives don't matter.
May I just add another perspective on that? In my opinion, not only are they seeing that Black lives don't matter, but I believe that their actions show that in their eyes, Black lives do matter. Something that you can dismiss, you don't feel you have to kill. And for some reason, their aggression shows their fear of the Black lives, their distaste, their hatred for them. Even when we were talking about the deaths, the transgender Black are like have been this high death rate that's been targeted. There is this distaste for what they believe is beneath them. It's not saying that the lives don't matter. To me, it's saying that the lives do matter. If somebody takes the time to work to exterminate something, or this intentional genocide, that to me is saying that to them, our lives do matter. They matter so much that they want to eliminate what they consider to be a threat, in my opinion. And so I think that I'm not saying that I disagree, but I'm saying just think about that. You don't preoccupy yourself with someone that doesn't matter to you. You just what they say. They can say whatever they want to say. But
oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I think there's a little delay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, I'll let someone else speak to that now. That's what I've been thinking. I'm thinking that to me, what we're seeing is fear of Blacks achieving. We see fear of Blacks being thought of as better. I think even the adults are afraid of their children seeing that Black lives are important, and that their fear is that we will then turn around and do to them what they think they deserve for us to do. And what I'm saying is we're not like that. They don't realize we're not a vindictive people. If we were, they would have been in trouble a long time ago. But I do believe that many of them think that because of how we have been mistreated, that given the opportunity to be on the other end of the 1% or whatever, that we will then be the oppressors. That's what I believe.
In my opinion, what she's articulating is fear of retribution. That's not the same thing as value. That's simply fear of retribution, saying somebody's going to come against you because of what you've done.
Yeah,
I don't view that as accepting you or appreciating you or as valuable as just fearing you. You can fear an enemy, right? It doesn't necessarily mean you value that enemy.
That right. Norman, you had something to say. You want to chime in here?
So I'll say this, Reverend Margaret, I've heard exactly what you said, and I've seen memes on Facebook that says, you better be glad we're only asking for equality and not retribution. And so I totally get that. But I think for my position is more of a call to action within the Black community. So my position is I get exactly what you're saying, but what I'm saying is that there are members of the Black community, and then I hope that we can venture to how to uplift our life. But there are members of the Black community that are making it known that all Black lives don't matter. For example, the woman who was Miss Dior, who was marching for Black Lives Matter, who was beaten by Black men for being trans. There was also, in this case, since George Floyd was murdered, there was countless, I think it was over 50 people that have been killed by police officers. One of which being a transgender woman who was, her head was shaven, her breasts were exposed, and she was left with her face beaten, unrecognizable by Black police officers. So I think the challenge becomes is how are we to expect other people to say our lives matter if they don't all matter to us? And yes. So it's not a question of, to me, of like the retribution. It's a matter of us holding our community accountable and saying, okay, so if you're cisgendered, meaning you identify with the gender you were born with, and you are heterosexual, then your life matters if you're Black. But if you're gay, bi, trans, lesbian, any of these things, Black people have consistently shown that they do not matter, which is why our lives are even up for legislation, even as of the Supreme Court ruling that was just 2 days ago. So I think for me, it's more about the unifying within our community. It's not about convincing white people that Black lives matter. We have to convince ourselves that Black lives matter.
Indeed.
Until we do that, it's no, how can someone take you seriously and you say Black lives matter, but then you're the same person that beat a Black trans person marching for Black lives matter? Exactly what my mom said. We must value ourselves. It starts from inside. And so I definitely agree with what you're saying about the equality versus retribution, because I mean, that could look a lot different than what is happening now. But I also think that the focus has to come back to us. We can't tell everyone else Black Lives Matter, and we're killing ourselves during Black Lives Matter.
Well, okay, let me jump in here. Again, I think it's not appropriate to become as critical of this behavior that's almost suicidal in terms of Blacks killing other Blacks when it was systemically engineered through slavery that we would not have a value of each other's lives. That hasn't stopped to the extent that we are now healed and able to see each other as valuable, which is why we're still struggling to see our brothers and our sisters not only as equals, but valuable. So there's a problem there where we have to heal. Now, as far as I'm understanding this dynamic that we're trying to recover from as a people, it comes through the family, which was also systemically destroyed, where husbands were not allowed to be fathers to their children or husbands to their wives. And as far as the ingrained loyalty that you generally had within a family, that was something that was attacked as well, so that you couldn't have the same loyalty, family loyalties as other cultures had, because systemically they said that was not allowed. And you were sold off, bred off, abused in such a way that you weren't allowed to do that. So again, I know you guys are a lot younger, but if you know the history, you know the long-term effects of destroying the family structure is huge. And we're struggling with that.
Which is one of the main reasons that we stress I do, me too. Because we do recognize that we have been systematically traumatized as a people.
Right.
And we don't even know it because we've grown up with it. It's like uh, it's like what you're used to eating, right? I remember TD Jake saying that he had always put ketchup on his spaghetti. And when he had some spaghetti with spaghetti sauce, he said that didn't taste right, you know? And so it's like if you're used to beating up on yourself and you're used to that and you think that's the way it is, then you don't know how to be any other way. To we need to proactively be examples, demonstrate, and teach each other how to love. At the same time, we can't judge those people who don't know how to love because they don't know how to love.
So my question,
I agree.
Okay. Given all of that, how do we now train our minds, our hearts to uplift our life? How then do we come from the place where, we have all of this division and, even going through this COVID-19 pandemic, and I'm going through a divorce at this moment, and, going through all of these things in solitude, shelter in place, from all of those things that we're dealing, how then do we uplift our life? And I think, circling back to the topic that we're here to discuss is, for me, uplifting my life is living my life unapologetically and unashamed. The thing is, you cannot be uplifted when you're bogged down by the opinions and the systematic ideology of other people. So for me, the way I uplift my life is I live my life. I live my life unapologetically, unashamed, in purpose, and on purpose. And, even if you're going to a biblical sense, a tree by their fruit, right? So all you got to come and look at my fruit garden. I welcome anyone to come and look into my fruit garden. And so that is how you uplift, to me, you uplift your life. By what your parents were saying about that non-judgmental attitude, embracing love, embracing change, and literally, as I say, do you, boo? That's how you uplift your life.
Right. Yeah. So let me hold on just a second, Dr. Andrew Mall. Briefly, what I want you to zero in on, Norman, just like I was putting in the blog, one of the things that we were dealing with was the fact that you are a double minority, and we're talking about the systemic oppression and how people have learned certain behaviors because of what we have suffered through the years. With you being in the position that you're in, what made you decide to be a crusader as opposed to just, honey, I'm getting mine, I'm doing me. You decided to be a crusader and try to uplift other people and encourage people to share their stories and encourage their stories to rise above all of this. What made you decide to go that route?
So,
Norman.
It's multifaceted, Asia. And the thing about it is I wish every young gay person, and I hope this doesn't offend you, but I really wish every young gay person had an Asia. Because when I was going through a lot of what I was going through, you were really the only person that I was able to talk to. You know what I'm saying? And what caused me to be a crusader for what I'm doing is the way that the family made me feel, the way that I was made to feel by society, and the uncommon opinion and the unpopular opinion is the duality that gay Black men live every single day. So you have to subdue your Blackness for white people and subdue your gayness for Black people, right? And so what happened was, instead of embracing myself as a child of God, instead of embracing the gifts, I ran from it. If you remember, as soon as I got my car, I was ready to leave Fillmore. Because to me, that did not feel like love. And so to me, I felt like I have to be a champion for the people that I've come into contact since I've moved to Vegas. I've buried 3 of my closest friends since I've moved here 13 years ago. And I have to be a champion for that 13 or 14-year-old person of color that it also identifies as the LGBTQ that is made to feel less than, that they're going to burn in hell, that they're never going to amount to anything, that they can pray the gay away, that they can do all of these different things. And so what I decided to do was to use my platform and to say, it does get better, boo. You can do whatever the heck you want to do. I can be a property manager. I own 2 businesses. I can do whatever it is I want to do. And sometimes that means creating such a boundary with your past that you don't allow it to affect your future, and it actually propels you into purpose. And so when I started Over the Top Living, my niche is specific. Over the Top Living is for people that identify as LGBTQ plus, period. Millennials, that's my niche. And because that is where I felt the most hurt. That is where I began to start feeling like I was less than, unworthy. When I remember even the pastor of our church would tell me, how are you holding your wrist this way? And that's someone that's supposed to be someone that I look up to. That's someone that's supposed to be my godfather, right? And so when you are prejudged at a young age, I have been called gay since I was in 1st grade. And I didn't even know what gay was, right? So when I had been called he's so feminine and this and that and all of these things, it put something in me before I was even able to verbalize or identify what it was. So immediately it's like, you're going to hell, you're doing this. So to answer your question, to circle back, I started Over the Top Living to save lives, because not everyone is as fortunate as I am. Not everyone is as fortunate to have a mother and a father that say, hey, we gonna figure it out together as a family. You know what I'm saying? Or a mom that says, you know what, I didn't understand it now, but I see that you're still my child, you're still my son. People don't have that. You see what I'm saying? That's why you have these countless organizations that have these suicide hotlines and these homeless shelters that are filled with LGBTQIA plus youth that are put out of their homes and put out of their families for truly just being who they are.
You have something to say, Dr. Margaret?
Yeah. Here's something that, like I said, we have this discussion. You got to realize too, this gayness was not new to you as far as our family is concerned. We had gay relatives as well. And so I was definitely early on engulfed in the culture because of my relationship with a family member. And what I'm saying is, I understand what you're saying, but let's be real. You talk about black on black gays. I saw gays on not loving gays for whatever reason. There was the gay men versus the gay women. I saw that in the clubs. So there's a lot of that to go around. And and I was asking questions then. I'm like, both of you are gay. Why are the gay men down on the gay women? And so what I'm saying is, I don't think that anyone is blameless or victim heavy when it comes to this. This is what I'm saying.
The thing about it is forums like this allow growth. Forums like this allow for an open and honest dialogue. Mm-hmm. And for me, going back to the question that was asked of me, that is why I chose to uplift other people. Mm-hmm. That is my mission, just like I'm sure that you in a pastoral position have the reason why you have the mission, that you're doing. And so for me, I feel just as if, my mom always uses the analogy, God would use a donkey, right? He'll use whatever he can use for what he's trying to do. And so my part in that is to save lives, to uplift people that are downtrodden. And that is my thing. Anything else, we can discuss, but the reason to uplift is to save a life. The reason to uplift is because at 34 years old, I do not want to have to bury another friend. At 34 years old, I do not want to have to attend another funeral of a transgender person whose family put them misgendered in the casket. So that for me is why I choose to uplift because I recognize that not everyone is as lucky as me.
Okay. Let me speak to that as well, because what
Very
you're
good.
saying is accentuating something that I wanted to speak to before, which is that hurting people that have been hurt find their healing through helping. I'm going to say that again.
Mhm.
People that have been hurt find their healing through helping. So as you're reaching out to help others, and again, the others don't have to be exactly the same as you. Sometimes you find that, as you say, your niche because you have a better way of actually identifying or relating to them. But when you posture yourself to actually put somebody else's interest ahead of your own, to say, I want to help you, I'm here to help you, you're also empowering yourself in a way that you don't even realize, because you can then receive what's needed to help that person and in the process be healed yourself. So there is this circle, if you will, of resources that come unto those that are willing to be in the position to help others. So I applaud what you're saying. What I'm saying as well is that I think for each of us, when we came into this ministry, we didn't come into this ministry because we were all perfect and everything. We were hurting as well. And God began to use our willingness to reach out and help those that we saw needed even more help than we did. And he began to help us even with ourselves, because we still needed help. Just because you decide to help somebody else doesn't mean that everything's fixed in you. We still needed help, but he began to work on us while we were helping others. I say that for the original question. I think before we're talking about, as far as African Americans are concerned, how we as a people going to get to a position where we're actually valuing one another and appreciating one another. It is through helping one another and helping one another through a myriad of issues, because we are incredibly diverse as a people. We are not the same. There is no cookie cutter version of African Americans anywhere. Period. We are all incredibly
And
different.
especially in our family.
Well, I think our family mirrors a lot of families, though. I think there's a lot of diversity, period, throughout our race. I think we're especially gifted in our family. And when I say that, I think God has indwelled us with so many incredible creative gifts that have been shaped and framed and wonderful, productive things for others to acknowledge, but even for ourselves to appreciate. And with all of that, everybody that's exceptionally gifted to be creative is not necessarily all healed. So again, it's about us being in a position to help one another, or I should say, choosing a position to help one another, and in the process being receptive so that we can ourselves be healed as well.
May I address even what some of the people have said? Do you mind? Just one thing that I'd like to ask everybody, to tell the truth. In our healing, one of the things that I did, I wrote a book, right? When Girls Don't Tell. And it took me a while for me to actually be able to read the book afterwards, right? One of the things that I saw in it is that I realized that I was still bitter. I was still reaching back. I was still placing blame for whatever happened. And I finally get to the point where I'm forgiving. This is what I'm saying. It doesn't do any good for me to demonize whoever it was, to say that it's your fault because of what happened to me. I'm not saying that there's not responsibility. What I'm saying is to dwell there, to stay there, to blame somebody else for my experiences doesn't do me any good. It doesn't help me to actually heal. I have to first now start forgiving. And the forgiveness comes with saying, sometimes hurt people hurt other people.
True.
100%. Yeah.
Where does it start? I think that even in our ignorance, Norman, if you will, and people saying, saying things that they don't understand out of ignorance, don't even realize how much it hurts.
Yeah.
Don't even realize how ignorant it is. Don't even realize the turmoil that you're going home and feeling because of those misspoken words, because of ignorance.
Sure.
And so what I'm saying is that when we see people, now when you're getting physical and you're hurting somebody, that is horrible. when you're hurting somebody internally, that is horrible. But understand that many of these people, they don't have it up here because they don't have the compassion of God in them anyway, the way it needs to be in
So
order
my question, so
to
my
relate.
question becomes to you then, from that standpoint, how do we uplift our life? How do we find a common ground where we can say, listen, let's agree to disagree or not agree or disagree to agree or whatever it is, and be like, now it's time to uplift. How do we get there?
May I respond?
Hmm?
She did it.
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
So what I believe
Mhm.
is it definitely starts with a want to. People have to want to uplift their own lives and at the same time want to uplift other lives. But I also believe that is something that we have to be accountable to each other for. In other words, if I say I'm going to try to be uplifting and then I'm judging, I'm the only one who's looking at myself, I'm the only one who's answering to me, I don't know whether I'm doing it well or not. And for some reason, we don't want to be held accountable. I'm not talking about judging. I'm talking about having somebody to look and say, did I say the right thing? Did I just insult somebody? And if I'm doing that, let me know. And then being able to receive the admonishment, being able to receive the correction. For some reason, we're people that don't want to be corrected. That's one thing. The other thing is inside, it says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Guess what? Asia said it last week. If I'm going to look at all kinds of media that teach me how to hate, then you know what? I'm going to be hateful, even towards somebody I don't even know. So you want to surround yourself by like-minded people that want to uplift. You want to surround yourself with loving people. And then when you're around other people, after you've been, energized and have all this positive energy and all this love, then you go around other people and try to share it. So it takes us to do it individually, but let our light shine collectively and it'll keep growing. Will everybody do it? No. But that's not really our concern. Our concern is to do our part to be uplifting. And okay, so we're talking about a mindset. We're talking about accountability that is real important. And I believe that really, for me, the thing that changed my mind is my relationship with God. It was until I had that relationship with God, I was not in the mindset, the frame of mind, the spiritual place that I needed to be to forgive and to be able to love unconditionally. And that, I believe, is what it's going to take. Yeah.
So I think that's great. So Aisha, my question to you is, with your platform, what are your pointers for uplifting your life? I definitely appreciate you facilitating this conversation, but
Yeah.
how, I mean, girl, come on in here, help us out, girl. I mean,
Yeah.
we need to uplift.
That's actually what I was about to get to. So let's deal with what this is called, pure.
Hmm.
It stands for perfectly undefined raw elegance, right? Raw elegance. Why did I say it like that? So first of all, I'll tell you why I started this. I started this because of my daughter coming home and telling me she didn't feel like she was beautiful because other people were telling her what beautiful looked like.
Hmm.
So when I said perfectly undefined, what does that mean? That means that as you guys have put it, Doctors Aaron and Margaret Jamal, there's no cookie cutter uh, black or white or any individual for that matter. We are all perfectly made and different. So that's where the perfectly undefined comes from. The raw and elegance is presenting yourself as real, presenting yourself as how God made you, but with elegance, with class. You know, we we don't always have to be, hey, in your face. I'm gonna be like this, and you just gonna deal with it. You know what I'm saying? That's just the way it is. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't have to be all of that all the time. So I'm welcoming people to not just understand who they are, but appreciate who they are because that's how God made them. Period. And so a perfectly undefined raw elegance with understanding who you are, with understanding that God did not make a mistake when he made you,
Mm-hmm.
then you take that knowledge and you work with what God gave you and you help somebody else through
Mm.
their journey with your testimony. Because I have my own testimony that I try to help people with. I went through things. You know, people say I don't look how, like I went through anything, or there's no way you look like you ain't been through nothing, child. Well, thank you. But I've been through plenty. I can write a book, I can write a TV series, and many, many books, and a couple of movies, and still wouldn't be able to tell you the whole story. So that is what this platform is for, is to embrace people, to appreciate how God made them. It is to encourage people to speak up, speak out, and recognize you're beautiful. We're all beautiful in our own way. However, God made us, we're beautiful. And we all have something to offer. Everybody has something to offer.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Amen.
put it
And
forth
I
however
think
you.
too, Asia, when you're talking about uplifting your life, when you're talking about it from a personal level, there's certain work that has to be done there. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just did not wake up and become the founder of Over the Top Living and Rosie's Cleaning and owning these businesses and doing these things, right? And as you said,
Right.
you saw it more than anybody, the dark place. Even when you guys were when you were living on the west side, and I would come to you crying, and you
Yeah.
would hold me and allow me to cry in your arms because I was going through all of these things. You truly allowed me to uplift my life, right? Because you showed me love, you showed me compassion. And I'm not taking away from anyone else in the family, okay? I'm not doing that. But what I am saying is that I got that from you. Now, if someone wants to take that another way, they take that way. Now, I got that from you. And that is what, even as you said last week or 2 weeks ago, that just you seeing me being able to do that kind of gave you permission and
Mm-hmm.
a way to step in and say, I can do this too. So I think that it's important when we're talking about uplifting our lives is to understand our connection with other people. And yeah, we can go back and say, oh, I didn't know then. And I mean, we all, obviously, hopefully do better when we know better. But
Mm-hmm.
talking about uplifting, it's an innocent, and like your business is called Pure. It is an innocent and it is pure. And I got that from you out of all my cousins. Do you know what I'm saying? The only other cousin that I remember feeling that, like in my immediate family line, was Aisha.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so that is where it comes from. Uplifting your life is being able to see past your view. And this is uplifting other people's lives and uplifting our own. You cannot uplift your own life until you can see past your own worldview to see someone else. Do you see what I'm saying? And so, in order for me to
Mm-hmm.
uplift my life or be able to uplift someone else's, I had to be able to see beyond Chicago. I had to be able to see beyond Fillmore. I had to be able to see beyond whatever was right in front of me because there was a bigger purpose, right? There was a bigger thing. Like you don't even know the times that we sat there and we were on those Nokia brick phones when you were living in Colorado, and I would call you and cry, and I have to wait until it was 11 your time when you had, because it was 9 my time or whatever the case may be. A lot of people don't know that. They don't know that. But that is how you uplift your life. You uplift your life by removing your biases, by removing that other crap, and just being there for that person, listening to that person, hearing that person, being there for that person, allowing that person to cry on your shoulders, which I've done numerous times. Even recently, going through what I've done, I call you almost before I call anybody else. And so when we're talking about uplifting our life, the purpose is bigger. And I think that out of all of this conversation, everything that we've said, that we hopefully can agree on that in order to uplift our lives and uplift the lives of other people, it has to extend beyond my experience, right? Because I'm a gay male. So if I want to uplift someone who is a straight female, that's not something I can identify with, but I want to relate to them, right? And so that is where the truth of uplifting comes from. It's an unconditional love that manifests itself in support to me. That's my opinion. And that has what has been my experience. But when we're talking about exactly as Deacon Perry is saying, is empathizing. We don't have to understand. Like, I don't know what it is to be a starving child, but I can empathize with that situation. I don't know what it is to be addicted to drugs on the street, but I can empathize with that. I think there's a certain, as my cousin Edwin put, there's a certain level of empathy that has to come in when you're trying or putting yourself in a position to encourage other people. And that is, it has to start at the foundation. And sometimes it's like we don't want to go back down and look at our foundation to fill in those cracks. We try to put a little plaster over it and keep going. But we really have to go down into these cracks in the foundation and fix, like your dad was saying earlier, it's a systematic thing. We were taught not to value lives and all this other things. We have to be willing to go into the cracks and do the work. Because without the work, we can talk all day. We can talk every Friday. Every Friday at 9 p.m., we can continue to talk. But until we put that talk into action, until we put that talk into something tangible, what we are doing is flapping our gums and wasting our time.
May I say something as well?
Sure. We got a few minutes left. Go right ahead, Dr. Mo.
Okay. I'll try to be brief. One of the elements that I think we are all carrying as baggage is that we have emotional blind spots, where there are things coming from us that we can't see. We're not aware of those things. So that's part of what it is that Dr. Margaret's talking about regarding being open to somebody actually hold you accountable and reveal unto you those things that you're blind to. You can't see them, but they're coming from you. If we're open for that accountability, if we're willing to learn, maybe I missed this. I thought I had this right, but I might have missed this. If we have that posture, we can, again, teach one another, love one another, lift one another, and actually help each other to heal.
Amen.
Amen.
And I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. I feel like there's a roundabout. Like I told one of my employees the other day, I said, I feel like we're saying the same thing, but in different versions.
Okay.
I feel a lot of that, like when I'm listening to the Reverend Doctor speak, and at least maybe it's just me, but I feel like it's almost like they're speaking Spanish and I'm speaking French, but it's like we're saying like the
same thing.
We're like saying the same thing. It takes shape in a different way. I think what we're saying is it starts with love. I think it starts with empathy. I think, like Reverend Margaret said, it starts with a willingness to be held accountable. And I think that that's across the board. We all need to be held accountable from whatever position. But I also think where true uplifting begins is what, like Reverend Dr. Margaret said in the beginning. We need to have a conversation. And that is where the true understanding begins. Now, it's either there's two options. It's going to happen or it's not. But if I allow you the opportunity and you allow me the opportunity, we can at least agree to disagree. Mm-hmm. I feel like it all starts with conversation, because at the base of it, as the Reverend Doctors have said, is love. Mm-hmm. And if the base of it is love, I can walk away and be like, well, I don't agree with nothing that child said, but I love her. And that's okay. I don't have to agree, because just like every one of us here, we're all adults. I don't have to agree with anybody except the employer that writes my check every 2 weeks. And so at the end of the day, if we are really saying that we love each other, then we should be willing to have those tough conversations, even if it's uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. It disrupts what we think we know or what we think we feel. that to me, that's where true growth comes. Growth comes from discomfort. You see what I'm saying? When you plant a seed in the ground, whatever is inside of that seed has to bust out of that seed. And so I'm okay with discomfort as long as we can come together and have a conversation.
That's why I thank you too
Amen.
for this opportunity. Thank you for having us as guests and being able to share in the conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, it was definitely a surprise.
Thank you, Norman, Asia, and family
Thank you.
for joining us.
all.
All our friends and family that joined and spoke up. Here's our nephew.
I really appreciate that interaction.
Family affair.
The family affair. So
I think our family is growing with friends. Mm-hmm.
It is. For the people that would like to come back, my information is at the bottom. We do have the show every Friday at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Invite your friends.
As I put up earlier, yes, invite your friends, share, please, and thank you. And as I put up earlier, Norman has, as the founder of Over the Top Living, I put his website down there, overthetop.living.com.
And I want to say something really quick about that, Asia, really quick. I don't mean to keep cutting you off, but it's very important. No, it's very important for people to understand. When you go to my website, it's not for everybody. Everyone is not my customer. Just like you have Verizon, AT&T, Metro, PCS, and Sprint, and all of these things, not everyone is my client. But I definitely appreciate you going to my website to learn. But if it's not for you, it's not for you. What do they say? They say take the best and leave the rest. So if you can do something from it or pass it on, cool. If not, go to the next webpage. Not everyone is my customer or my client. And I understand that, and I appreciate that.
All right. Well, amen, and thank you for that. And like I was going to say, in a few weeks, we will have Drs. Aaron and Margaret Jamal back to speak on I Do Me Too, as they briefly mentioned earlier. And we're going to get more into that initiative and dealing with marriages and couples.
Relationships. We're going to get all into it.
Relationships, all of the relationships. So I thank you guys again for this wonderful conversation. I hope all of us have taken away some good things and learned some things tonight. So all of you have a wonderful evening. God bless, and see you next week.
God bless you too. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.